Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It would appear that a quorum somewhat in excess of 100 people is here this evening. I am advised that voters are continuing to check in. And if you've been here before, you will recall we have some business matters to which we need to attend. I have always encouraged voters to appear in a timely fashion, and those of you who are seated obviously did so, but we appreciate that not everyone can do that. Couple of observations. Because of the crowd, I'm going to reiterate something I said earlier, that all non-voters in the gym or the auditorium are please asked to remove themselves to the small gym down the hall to my right. And those of you from in the auditorium, you can come through the gymnasium, walk down the walkway at the rear of the gymnasium here and into the hall, which will lead you to the slim gym. We appreciate the interest of non-voters who are attending, but obviously voters have a priority. So as voters arrive, on behalf of the town clerk, I will read the constable's return of service. Pursuant to the written warrant, I have notified and warned the inhabitants of the town of Chatham by posting attested copies of the same in each of the post offices of said town at least 14 days before September 18, 2023, on September 1, 2023, signed Benjamin J. Nickerson, Constable. We have, as we have in past years, we have a cart system located to my right for the hearing impaired. I want to thank Stephanie for being here. I also want to thank the CERT volunteers who have been outside in the rain assisting with parking and assisting handicapped folks coming in and otherwise. We appreciate their efforts. Again, because of the crowd, and I'll reiterate this once more and several times, I'm going to ask that all non-voters leave this gymnasium and go to the small gym. Given the high level of interest in this meeting and the number of participants, we are already using the auditorium, obviously, for the seating of voters. They will be able to see and hear what's occurring and also vote. We may end up with voters in the small gym. If that happens, in addition to having a deputy moderator in the auditorium, we will need a deputy moderator in the small gym. Because we need that, the deputy moderators right away, we should address that forthwith. The statute provides for the selection of one or more deputy moderators, and I will entertain nominations. In fact, Mr. Daniel to my left nominates Paul Semple, who has served in the past, and also Corey Metters. Are there any other nominations for deputy moderator? If not, we will take a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. So voted by a very substantial majority, if not unanimously. We will talk momentarily about electronic voting. Please identify yourself when you speak, and by way of example, my name is Bill Litchfield. I'm elected by you as moderator to decide questions of order, which I try to do with fairness and in keeping with both the law and our traditions. I'll now introduce the officials up front. To my right, our town manager, Jill Goldsmith, our select board, the chair, Corey Metters, Shireen Davis, Jeff Dykins, Dean DeCastro, and Mike Schell. I did them alphabetically, not necessarily how they were seated. And down in front, our town council, Pat Costello. And to my left, your finance committee, the chair, Stephen Daniel. And again, alphabetically, Kristen Andres, Norma Avalar, Tommy Doan, Barbara Madison, John Pappalardo, Tracy Shields, Joanne Sprague, and Andy Young. Tommy is recovering from surgery, but we wish him well. So now for some traditional words about how we do things as a town meeting. Please speak only after I've recognized you. Stand where you are and say, Mr. Moderator, which is the appropriate way to gain recognition. The same thing is happening in the auditorium with Mr. Semple, and if a voter in there decides at the last minute to speak, get Mr. Semple's attention. But if you're in the auditorium and you anticipate speaking, please come into this room. It'll be a little bit simpler, but again, if not, if that isn't feasible, get Mr. Semple's attention and he will let me know. So you stand and say, Mr. Moderator. You don't need to get in or stand in a line, and very frankly, my personal preference is that you don't do so. Moreover, standing in a line doesn't guarantee that you will be called upon. Every person here this evening deserves courtesy and respect. The appropriate way of referring to another voter is as the previous speaker rather than by name. Civility is expected of all members of this legislative body. You may shortly adopt a rule imposing a time limit on your remarks. If you adopt that rule, even though it allows for a degree of flexibility, I assume you want it to mean what it says, so please, speakers, adhere to that limit. I'll try to let you know when this time is running out. In the main gym, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, half a dozen seats right over here. They're fairly central. Anybody else have an empty seat? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are several down here. So those of you who have just come in, please come in because there are seats down here that you can sit in. And if for that matter, if any voters want to raise their hands as to where seats are available or raise your blue card, thank you. That will be appreciated. It'll give voters guidance as to where they should go. If you wish to offer an amendment, it should be in writing and handed to me after you make it. Please see Mr. Costello down front, who can help you with the language. Motions actually offered may differ from or be more complete than those printed in the warrant. That which is read will prevail over the printed language and even over that which may be displayed on the screen. So please listen carefully to the motion actually made. For those of you who may be new to our meeting, we do not require seconding. If there is a procedural issue about which you're unclear, please let me know, and please do so before we start to vote by standing and saying point of order or asking for a point of information. Feel free to ask questions on procedural matters. I understand that there can be sometimes complex issues, and I'll do my best to explain processes, but please do that, ask those questions before we start to vote. You are the town's legislative body. Your decisions are critical in deciding the future of the town of Chatham as a community. You are all to be commended for being here and for exercising your right to participate in this deliberative process. You speak, you listen to speakers, you ask questions, you consider, and you decide. Town meeting is often called a bastion of democracy because it gives you the right to a direct vote. Here, again, you decide. Every voter is equal, and every vote counts equally. So again, I thank you for being here. As we did at our annual town meeting a few months ago, we'll be using electronic voting for many but not all votes. There will be some simple matters, such as the election of a deputy moderator, which you just did, or deputy moderators, in which a traditional voice vote may be the more efficient way of proceeding. But voting on substantial or contentious matters, assuming we might have some, will be done electronically. Every voter has received an electronic device or clicker which will allow for both accuracy and privacy in voting. This system is used successfully in something in excess of 50 Massachusetts towns, as it was here in May, and we're confident in its security and in its accuracy. It's an offline, closed, short-range technology, completely isolated from the internet. Your clicker has 3 buttons. The only 2 of which you'll be using are the 1 green yes button at the top and the 2 red no button immediately below it. When we're ready to vote, simply press 1 green for yes or 2 red for no. When you vote, the screen at the top of your clicker, when you vote, your clicker will display OK to show you that your vote has been registered. It probably won't be doing it right now because voting isn't open. We'll do a test vote shortly. If you make a mistake or change your mind, you can, while voting is open, hit another button and the clicker will again display OK. Obviously, there's an issue of considerable concern, Article 5, and we will have a lengthy voting window for that. For some of the other articles, it may only be a 30-second voting window, but we will make sure that all voters who wish to vote have voted. 30 seconds may not seem like much, but you can change the channel on your remote at home in about 2 seconds, and I know you know how to do that. But again, we'll practice and we'll see how it goes. During that voting window, and again we'll have a test, the total of votes cast, but not the yes and no numbers, will be displayed. Near the end of the time for voting, I'll ask if there is anyone who hasn't voted. Mr. Semple will be able to tell me if there are people in the auditorium who have not voted, and that will be a final warning. We'll then close the voting, which locks in your vote, and I'll then announce the results, which will be displayed upon the screen. When you leave the meeting, there are deposit boxes for the clickers at the exits. Please be sure to leave your clicker when you depart, and if you sometimes forget or somehow forget, please return it later, any town facility, town offices, police station, etc. We only lost 2 out of more than 900 in May, and those, excuse me, those 2 are now disabled, so whoever has them has useless souvenirs. But again, please drop them off when you depart. If, by the way, you're thinking about handing your clicker to a friend when you leave and having that person vote twice, I would remind you that under Chapter 56 of the General Laws, the penalty for illegal voting or even attempting to do so is a fine of up to $10,000 or imprisonment for up to 5 years. So unless you feel particularly strongly about Article 1, unpaid bills of prior years, it's perhaps not worth it. So we'll try a test. I will momentarily open up the window for voting, so please get your clicker ready. The question will be up before you momentarily. Have you crossed the Cape Cod Canal this year? Have you been across the bridge since January 1st of 2023? It is up to my right. It is, and I don't care whether it's Bourne or Sagamore, okay? So if you have been off Cape this year, vote yes. And you can do so, and you should get the word okay. If you have not been off Cape since January 1st, vote no. Paul, anyone in there having any issues? Gentlemen down here, okay, if you have an issue with your voting, I should have said this, it may take a second for the okay to appear. If it does, if there is an issue, Mr. Darman, the gentleman over here, raise your hand. Staff will be over. Anyone else having a problem? All right. Someone will be right with you, sir. Again, press the button and the OK should appear. And the lady in the rear, so 3. Anyone else having trouble voting? Did you get squared away, sir? Gentleman to my right in the orange? You did. Lady in the rear, you were having trouble. Are you all set? I think so. Mr. Semple, anyone there having any problems?
Yes, yes, they are. Just wait a few minutes here. Let's see.
Okay.
If we can clear it up.
Do you have staff coming in there working?
Not yet.
All right. Would you go? Yes, please. Would you go into the auditorium? Thank you very much. Someone's on his way. I'll be coming in the back. Maybe two someone's coming in the back door. So we'll wait for a moment for the technological issue in the auditorium to be resolved.
Okay, you voted yes? Yeah. All right. Yeah. And you're waiting for it to...
If you would be kind enough, please, Mr. Semple, to let me know when those issues are resolved, I'd appreciate it.
Bill, the issue seems to be they press and get the digit number 1 or 2, but they do not get OK after that.
All right. Mr. Darman should have come into your room to try to assist. Ryan, are you in there? In the auditorium? I obviously can't hear you, but someone needs to go in and see Mr. Semple.
It appears, Bill, that it's just taking time for that OK to come up. So that's what's delayed it for them.
Okay, Mr. Darman is coming in. It does take a little bit of time. And obviously, we have more than a handful of voters here, so we're all a little bit taxed and stressed. Everyone in the auditorium have voted?
Has everyone voted, and have you gotten your display that says OK? We have one person. We're going to check.
One. All right, let me know when the one is voted, please. For those of you who are in the back of the hall, I still see 1, 2, 3, 4, a few empty seats. Raise your hand if you have an empty seat near you. There are quite a few, so those of you in the back of the hall who'd like to sit, please come in.
Bill, it appears that all of them are working now.
Thank you, Mr. Semple. Is there anyone who has not voted? If not, we will close the vote and display the result. $954 of you have been off Cape this year. 111 of you have not, for a total of 1,065. Thank you very much. We would next ordinarily vote to adopt the resolution on rules as printed in the warrant, but it was pointed out by someone who pays attention to these things, she'll remain anonymous, but thank you, Gloria, that through inadvertence, the resolution was not initially printed in all copies of the warrant. There is, however, now an insert in the warrant, which I suspect most of you have this evening. Is there anyone who would like the rules resolution read rather than simply moved? Everyone had a chance to read the rules resolution? If there is no one who objects, I will, by unanimous consent, accept. I understand you're raising your hands for seating. So we will consider that to have been published sufficiently. Please note that the proposed resolution has a 4-minute limit on remarks. So I'll recognize Mr. Metters, the chairman of the select board, for motion.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the resolve that the town vote to adopt the following rules of procedure. Hello? Can you hear me now? There we go. Resolve that the town vote to adopt the following rules and procedure for the special town meeting on September 18, 2023.
Thank you. Mr. Metters has moved that we adopt the rules of procedure. If there is no further discussion, Mr. Buckley.
I have a question, Mr. Moderator. In the past, I've asked if a question of a town official, but I wanted to make sure that I was able to follow it up with a comment. So is there a particular phrase that I need to question in a comment, or I just want to make sure it doesn't get answered and then it's on to something else?
Well, if it's got answered, I think we should move on to something else. But if you want to follow up, I think we can reasonably accommodate as long as you make that clear.
Right. My comment would depend on what the official said, so I can't promise a comment until I... So as long as it's within 4 minutes, I'm...
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Further discussion? Any discussion in there, Mr. Semple?
Corey, you need this
No discussion in here either.
Thank you. If not, all those in favor, we'll use electronic devices on this as practice because you may want to do that. If you're in favor of the rules resolution, when we open it up in a moment, thank you. If you're in favor, vote yes. If you're opposed, vote no. Which is to be, stop, point of order, where and who? You got to take the microphone, sir. All right. If we are out of clickers, I'm going to ask those people who don't have clickers to go into the Slim Jim where Mr. Metters will be the moderator. He is going to count the yellow cards. We owned 800 clickers. We purchased 200 more. We rented 100, so we had 1,100. We have exceeded that number. So those voters who do not have clickers, please go down the hall. You will be able to participate. Mr. Metters will count your vote, and it will be reported to me. I apologize to you. We anticipated that we would have enough. So again, voters with yellow cards, not blue cards, yellow cards, please go down the hall to the gym. You can consider yourselves to be exclusive. You have your own voting section. And you will be able to fully participate. So with that, we will open up the vote. I will repeat that for people who, Ms. Smith, could you direct your staff to tell people that when they check in? Thank you. We're going to open up, continue the vote open. If you're in favor of the resolution, vote yes. If you're opposed, vote no. And when we close the vote, Mr. Metters can report the vote from in there. That room, unfortunately, is beyond the technological, without spending more money than you wanted to, beyond the technological abilities of this system. The auditorium is fine, but the gym down the hall is not, so we have to use the old-fashioned way for that. Yes. By the same token, if there are any voters with clickers in the small gym, please come in because your vote can't be read from down there. That was the emergency overflow, the non-voting and emergency overflow room. So if there are any voters with clickers in the small gym, please come into this hall and you can vote from in here. Oh, that's fine. Oh, we'll make an exception. Is there anyone who has not voted? All right, we're going to close the vote here. And Mr. Metters, please, when you can, please report from in there.
We are directing everyone the radius of the clickers in this room. Cards.
Mr. Ryder is pointing out now that his vote you didn't get an okay. Turn to your right. Turn to your right, please. Still open? We'll leave it open for a second. All set? Apparently we are. So again, when you vote, it should say okay. If you don't get that, please let us know sooner rather than later. Yes, sir, you didn't get an okay? All right. Tech people, the gentleman over here. Further in the rear. He's got his hand. Is the problem resolved? Well, then let's replace it. Nobody does. I'm sorry. The question has been raised about who's in the small gym. Mr. Metters is in there as a deputy moderator. Mr. Metters, can you communicate with me by microphone? You're supposed to be able to.
Hear me, Bill? Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. All right. Is everyone in there voted? Has everyone in the small gym voted?
Is there anyone in the auditorium who has a yellow card that should be in the small gym? Okay, thank you.
Once again, Mr. Metters, has everyone in there voted? Mr. Metters?
There, here we go. Here we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right.
Has everyone in there voted?
No. No.
Well, please ask them to do so.
We will. The Slim Jim would like some clarification on what they're voting on. We've had some technical difficulties over here.
Voting on the resolution on rules. That's all.
Thank you.
So you would need to take a hand count. All in this you can do on your own. I'll ask all who are in favor to vote in favor, and all who are opposed to vote no.
All right, Bill, for the information, we still got people piling in here.
Well, that's unfortunate, but there are limits.
All right. Go ahead.
Well, you need to go ahead. Ask those all in favor to say aye and those opposed to say no,
All right.
and give me a count.
All those in favor, raise up your yellow cards.
Raise up your card. Thank you.
All right. I'm comfortable saying the majority of the people in this room have raised their yellow cards.
Okay, but a count, an actual count, because we're taking this vote by record.
1, 2, 3, 4. All right, bear with me. We need another counter in here, please.
All right. Chief Tavano, you were over there. Could I draft you? If you're still down there? Or Ms. Donovan, if you could grab him.
In this section, please raise your yellow card. I'm going to count.
Thank you.
6, 9, 60, 61, 62, 63, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Once again, while we wait for the count in the gym, if there's anyone with a yellow card, just a yellow card, please go into the small gym.
All right, Bill, we have a count of 147.
And 147 in favor?
Correct.
And how many opposed?
Are those opposed? Raise your hand, please.
You can close the vote in here. We're now going to close the vote, except for in the
3.
three. So, Ms. Hallela, you and Mr. Costello have your cards out. So far, your calculators out. So far, it's 147 to 3. When we display the vote, 147,000, 1,100 and some to 55. I can count that as a majority. We'll get the actual number momentarily. 1122 to 55 is what I get. 1,122 in favor, 55 opposed. Thank you very much. With that, we'll start the town meeting. Article 1, to see if the town vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money for unpaid bills of prior years. Motion is going to be made by Ms. Davis because I put Mr. Metters to work in the other room. Ms. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to appropriate and transfer from community development encumbered funds the sum of $194.27 for the payment of the following invoices. Department Finance, June 18, 2023, Verizon phone bill 5895. Department Finance, June 18, 2023, Verizon phone bill 5532. Finance, April 6, 2023, Mass Collectors and Treasurers Association, registration $40. HR, May 2, 2023, Carewell, employment physical, $40 for a total of $194.27.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. This is essentially well, it's a legal requirement, largely a bookkeeping matter. Finance Committee recommendation, Mrs. Avalar.
Article 1, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available...
Can't hear you, Ms. Avalar.
Everybody can hear me. I yell. Okay? Article 1, prior fiscal year bills payment appropriation. To see if the town will vote...
No, Finance Committee recommendation, Ms. Avalar. Report. Finance Committee think this is a dandy thing to do?
What is it?
Question mark.
The Finance Committee supported this article 5-0.
Thank you, Ms. Avalar. This requires a 9/10 vote under state law. When we deal with unpaid bills of prior years, it required a 9/10 vote. My sense is that you might think it easier to vote by voice rather than to do a count. So I'm going to ask for all those in favor. I will also ask Mr. Semple and Mr. Metters if there's any deviation in his room. This requires a 9/10 vote. I would simply observe that the statute allows me to declare a 2/3 vote, but I cannot declare a 9/10 vote. So if such a vote is not unanimous, it requires a record vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Mr. Semple, any dissent in that room?
There are no dissents in this room.
And Mr. Metters in that room?
Only a few.
Let me ask again, were there no votes in the small gym?
No.
There were not. Thank you very much, Mr. Metters. Article 1 passes unanimously. Article 2, certain budgetary adjustments and transfers. For a motion, Mr. Schell.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to transfer $60,000 from the Public Safety Department Fire Capital Outlay Account, paren 01-220-0520-5800, close paren, to Community Services, Recreation and Beaches Capital Outlay Account, paren 01-650-0520-5800, close paren, to supplement the funding for Volunteer Park Playground, paren Article 40, Annual Town Meeting 2023, close paren. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Shell. Finance Committee recommendation, Mr. Papalardo.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. By a vote of 9-0, the Finance Committee fully supports this article.
Thank you, Mr. Papalardo. Further discussion under Article 2. And ask for a voice vote if there's, in a moment. If there are any different numbers, Mr. Semple in the auditorium or Mr. Metters in the small gym, please let me know. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Mr. Semple, it appears to have been unanimous in here. Similarly in there?
Yes.
And Mr. Metters?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So passed by an apparently unanimous vote. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to rescind certain borrowing authorizations as listed in this article in the warrant. For a motion, Mr. Dykens.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to rescind the following borrowing authorization. $25,000 under Article 24 for road takings, L Street and Skyway, approved at annual town meeting May 11, 2009, and $16,635 under Article 1 for the fire station design and construction project, approved at special town meeting October 4th, 2013. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Dykens. Finance Committee recommendation, Ms. Andres.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. In a vote of 9-0, the FinCom approves this article.
Thank you, Ms. Andres. Further discussion under Article 3? Not, we'll put the matter to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Unanimous in the gymnasium. Mr. Semple in there?
Yes, unanimous here as well.
Thank you. And Mr. Metters?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Article 4, to see if the town will transfer and appropriate the sum of $1,300,000 from Wastewater Capital Stabilization Fund to supplement funding for the belt filter press as approved in May. For a motion, Ms. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to transfer and appropriate from the Wastewater Capital Stabilization Fund the sum of $1,300,000 to the Capital Projects Fund for the belt filter project at the Wastewater Pollution Control Facility.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Finance Committee recommendation, Ms. Shields.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee voted unanimously in support of the additional appropriation of $1.3 million from the Wastewater Capitalization Fund for the replacement of the belt filter press.
Thank you, Ms. Shields. Further discussion under Article 4? And again, Mr. Semple or Mr. Metters, if anyone has a desire to speak in there, please let me know. If there is no one further, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. So voted unanimously unless there's any different vote in the gymnasium or in the auditorium or small gym, and I take it there is not. We have, as you know, well, you may not know, we seem to have tied or are approaching a tie for the highest town meeting attendance. We are some number in excess of 1,100 voters. The last prior high was for the regionalization vote 13 years ago. And we appreciate the amount of interest and the amount of, the participation of all of you. We are now obviously going to move on to Article 5. Just so that you know, I have been approached by a very large number of people who have told me they want to speak, people who have told me that they didn't get a chance to speak in May and they are unhappy. I have been approached by an equal number of people who say, everybody's heard this, we've made up our mind. That is one of the joys of my job, and I am going to try to balance that. I'm not going to entertain a motion for the previous question to cut off debate until there has been a reasonable amount of time. I do not expect that you will have any difficulty making the 11 o'clock news, and maybe not even the 7 o'clock news. But we will have some amount of deliberation because, as I said to you earlier, and I would remind you, you are a legislative body, you are a deliberative body, and you listen and you consider. I will stop because I'm taking up your time. For a motion, Article 5, to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money for the purposes of paying costs of constructing a new center for active living, formerly known as the Council on Aging facility at 1610 Main Street. For a motion, Mr. Shell.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the sum of $11,064,661 is hereby appropriated for the purpose of paying costs of design, construction, and equipping a new Center for Active Living, CFAL, close paren, formerly known as the Council on Aging, close paren, facility at a site located at 1610 and 0 Main Street, Chatham, respectively, identified by Assessors Maps 9E-2-1 and 9E-2-2, including payment of all other costs incidental and related thereto, and to meet this appropriation, the Treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, is hereby authorized to borrow said sum under and pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 7, paren 1, close paren, of the general laws, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore, to authorize the Select Board to accept and expend any funds which may be provided by any private sources to defray a portion of all of the costs associated with the project, provided that the amount of any such notes or bonds issued hereunder shall be reduced by the amount of any such funds received prior to the sale of such notes or bonds, said sums to be borrowed and expended hereunder in accordance with the May 11, 2023 approval by the voters of ballot question 1, which excluded the amounts needed to repay any borrowing authorized by this vote from the limitation imposed upon the total property taxes that may be levied within the town by Chapter 59, Section 21C of the Massachusetts General Laws, close paren, open paren, Proposition 2 1/2, close paren. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Shell. Now I recognize our town manager, Ms. Goldsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator and town meeting voters. I appreciate your time and attention for a brief presentation on the proposed Center for Active Living, also known as CFAL, for 1610 Main Street in West Chatham. The warrant has a detailed explanation and project history, which I do not plan to review, but happy to answer any questions. Here is a glimpse of the external project professionals utilized for the COA CFAL since 2018. We have our architect, BH&A, Joel Brockman, with more than 30 senior center and community center projects. We have Pomeroy Associates as our owner's project manager, who is here tonight, and also was the OPM for the fire station project. We have CHA estimators who participated in the August 22nd Community Forum, Coastal Engineering for Site and Civil Engineering, Rimmer Environmental for Wetlands Consulting, Intertech for Geotechnical Consulting, KZLA for Landscape Architecture and Site Planning, and PAR Engineering for Traffic and Parking Engineering. Their work will continue for final designs for bidding of the project if approved. Okay. This slide is also included in the warrant, but we wanted to present it in color to give you a little more perspective. And this shows the aerial view of the site plan with the following components that are before you tonight. So to the right of the property is our town conservation land. And as you see, the property is right off of 16 Main Street and the roundabout at Barn Hill. The facility pictured has 2 entrances that lead into a lobby, and the front of the entrance, which is actually the back entrance, provides for regional transit bus and COA bus drop-off. And as you can see, the parking is delineated. This is the same picture that is in the warrant. This slide and the ones after provide a conceptual view for Main Street with the town's conservation land to the right. This is a conceptual view from the parking lot behind the building with 1 entry point to the lobby. This slide provides a view of the second entry point to the lobby. This slide is a base floor plan, which has been presented before for the May 2023 annual town meeting, and this one has the rooms labeled. This next slide includes elements for an emergency evacuation center in the facility, labeled for potential occupancy for shelter users, and also allows for added showers to the upstairs companion bathrooms and a second floor storage area. These features would also have utility in the routine operations and programming for the CFAL. This slide provides the total project costs, construction plus so-called soft costs for design and furnishings. The warrant article motion, as read by Vice Chair Schell, notes the amount to be borrowed, which could be offset by any donations received. Additionally, the anticipated future operating costs, based on information provided by staff to the Finance Committee Working Group, are estimated at an additional $90,450 for the first year. If approved, we plan to complete construction plans by winter 2023, with construction beginning by April 2024. We anticipate completion within 12 to 14 months, with occupancy by the summer of 2025. The proposed site at 1610 offers ample space, mindful conservation measures, and integrates well with the neighborhood. We've also considered parking, public transit, safety, and the project aligns with Chatham's energy efficiency goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Goldsmith. Mr. Schell, or actually Finance Committee recommendation or Finance Committee report, Mr. Daniel, and then Mr. Schell.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. A 6-member cohort of the Finance Committee received a presentation on this Article 5. At a vote of 3 to 3, the committee is unable to make a recommendation either in support of or against the proposed article.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. Mr. Schell.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you, all of you. I want to try to talk to everyone here for just a minute or two. The proponents of the Center for Active Living, the opponents, and the undecideds, all 3 of you. If you're undecided, I hope you might be willing to take a recommendation from the folks whose responsibility it has been to design and present this initiative. The architect, who has designed 25 or more of these facilities, and the owner's project manager, who has supervised more than 60 such town projects. The unanimous COA board, the unanimous Friends of COA board, the unanimous Planning Board, the unanimous Select Board. And oh yes, don't forget that our local newspaper, the Chronicle, unequivocally endorsed this project again. If you're opposed, I congratulate you for your persistence and determined opposition. you never did quit. And you pursued it in the best tradition of the former First Lady, Nancy Reagan. If you're a supporter, thank you also for your dedication and your belief in the project, and especially for your trust and confidence in your fellow proponents. One last thought. This effort has brought me together with 20 or 25 Chatham seniors whose connection to the COA vary from very strong and close to remote and very tenuous. As is often said about a joke that falls flat, I suppose you had to be there to get it. But perhaps you'll accept my word that this group proved what we have been saying about the value and the promise of a new Center for Active Living. We old folks, and we are old, are energized and thrive when we have an activity and a goal, and especially when we have a group to work with. I feel confident in saying we bonded in a way that made us happier and healthier and definitely improved our outlook on life. And I also want to say, as a matter of fact, I hope the opponents can say the same thing for your effort. One way or the other, let's get this thing done. And don't anybody leave until we adjourn. It ain't over till it's over. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Stand up and say, Mr. Moderator, because that's how it's done. Ms. Freeman, then Mr. Farber, then Mr. Barry. Ms. Freeman, then Mr. Farber, then Mr. Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Gloria Freeman, and good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me now. I am 85 years old, and I'm also a member of the Friends of the Council on Aging. But I am voting no on this article, and this will be my fourth no. When I send my contribution to the Friends of the COA each year, which I have done for many, many years, I had no idea it would be used for glossy two-page inserts in newspapers and handouts, an incredible number of newspaper ads in color, numerous mailings, a public relations firm, telemarketing calls using our cell phone and landline numbers, and insulting letters trivializing taxpayers who have concerns about their taxes, as well as all their other increasing costs. The insensitivity of those who belittle these taxpayers is not at all in keeping with unity, community, or good manners. As a friend of the COA, I was never asked if I wanted the COA to be at 1610 Main Street, which I do not. I do not like the location, the size, or the cost. It's been a slick campaign, with town committee members being pressured and staff working 24/7 to support the project. A little too heavy-handed, maybe. Information meetings at private homes by invitation. It seems money is unlimited. And there have been misleading and untrue statements and behind-the-scenes meetings. Right at the start, even after town meetings said no thank you to the COA at 1610, a select board member and our town manager we're quietly negotiating with the property donor to renew the agreement.
Getting close, Ms. Freeman.
Please vote no. There are other options for the COA, regardless of how many times you have heard there are not. Both the current COA on Stony Hill and the community center offer several different alternatives which were never explored. Just say no again. That's what I'm going to do.
Thank you. Mr. Farber.
Good evening. My name is Peter Farber. I believe I qualify as a senior citizen, having recently attained the age of 75. I have resided on Cape Cod continuously since 1971, the last 33 years in Chatham. My remarks this evening are addressed to all my fellow seniors, particularly those who entered this hall absolutely sure that they were going to vote in favor of the proposed Center for Active Living at 1610 Main Street and spend roughly $11 million for its design and construction. I am in favor of a new senior citizen center. I have no problem with the location. I have no problem with the fact that the land was a donation from one of the town's most prosperous contractors. I certainly compliment all those who have worked so hard and given so much of their time to this endeavor. I recently read the September newsletter published by the Council on Aging. The programs and opportunities available to our senior citizens are very worthwhile. Cooking classes, movies, sharing of travel experiences, arts and crafts, tech support. However, I've found, and I'm sure many of you have found, that we enjoy more than anything, and we receive benefit from more than anything, than spending time with our children and our grandchildren. I've attended many athletic events and musical events in this building in the various rooms, and I'm sure many of you have done the same. Now to my point. What we need in Chatham, more than anything else, are homes for young families which they can afford. The first home I purchased was for $36,500. I was a carpenter, but with family help and the assistance of a local bank, I was able to purchase that modest home, raise a family, and send my children to the local schools. I suspect that many other seniors in this room had those same opportunities when they first purchased a home. We have in Chatham something called the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And my recommendation to you tonight is that before we commit $11 million to a particular project, we do so only when we put some significant funds into the Affordable Trust Fund. If we are all willing to spend $11 million, we are certainly willing, or should be, to spend 7, 8, whatever the number is, to provide a perfectly adequate senior citizen center, and at the same time give a real shot in the arm to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. The Finance Committee recently proposed some changes to the Board of the Trustees of the Trust Fund, and I compliment them on their recommendations, which are very, very astute. Now, many of you might say, well, we'll put the money into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund next year. And what I say is that we don't spend any money of this sort for a senior citizen center until we also put money into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. We can't do that tonight because that article is not on the warrant.
Getting close, Mr. Farber.
Yes, sir. So I recommend a no vote tonight, but it's actually a not yet vote. The new Senior Citizen Center will be funded, but at the same time, we will put this money into a good portion of the $11 million into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So it's not a no vote, although it is, but it's really not yet. And because more important than a senior center is providing a chance for young families to purchase a home in Chatham and raise their family. We can send a message to the other towns on Cape Cod tonight that Chatham is absolutely committed to providing housing for young families and their children and grandchildren. And we don't pay mere lip service to this. We put our money where our mouth is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Farber. Mr. Barry? After Mr. Barry, Mr. Mott, then Mr. Bergstrom. Mr. Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Michael Barry. I spent a lot of time this summer talking to voters about this issue, and not surprisingly, many minds were already made up. It was interesting to come across people who are still undecided and needed more information. It was a pleasure to talk to each and every one of them. But if there's anyone in this room tonight who is still undecided, I would urge you to consider the following. The land for this project has been donated to the town specifically for the use of a CFAL, Center for Active Living. The Friends of the Council on Aging, of which I am now serving as president, will be raising at least $1 million to enhance the programming offered at the new center. The passage of this article will also enable us to have additional housing units at the existing building at 193 Stony Hill Road. The quality of life for all of our residents will be improved, our current older adults and all of our residents as we age. Equipping the building so as to qualify it for an emergency shelter will be a potential benefit for the whole community. Who wants to say after an emergency, gee, I wish we had a place of our own in Framingham, in Chatham, right here in town to shelter during a storm. The project has been thoroughly studied, and there is no feasible alternative site. Not that anyone wishes to start over. This is an excellent investment in our community of Chatham, one which you must admit is affordable, given the presentation by our finance director at the recent public forums that have been held, and as you see written on page 12 of the warrant for tonight's special town meeting. We have a wonderful opportunity here tonight to make Chatham a better place to live and work and retire and prosper. I urge you to vote yes.
Thank you, Mr. Barry. Mr. Mott, then Mr. Bergstrom, then the woman on the aisle. I'll get to you all. Mr. Mott? Don't dawdle.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is David Mott. And like Mr. Schell, I'm speaking this evening to a very specific group of people, not those who, like me, oppose this CFAL at this location and at this price, nor to the people behind me and many of you sitting here that think 1610 will cure all of our ills, saving our senior community, solving the affordable housing shortage, and after ignoring the issue for almost a decade, establishing an emergency sheltering location. I'm really here for those of you who, despite hearing all the pros and cons, are not fully committed to either side, who may still be on the fence and will only in the next few moments decide how to cast a vote. For the past several years, town leadership has led us into the desert with a single canteen, only to find that it's full of sand, but steadfastly refusing to change directions in an attempt to find fresh water to quench our thirst. Proponents have extolled the virtues of the gift of 1610, controlling generosity which comes at a sizable cost, both seen and unseen. To us, well over thousands of dollars just to make the site buildable. Let's remember why it's even an option. Man down. Okay. Could somebody help her up, please? Do you need assistance, ma'am? You sure you're okay? All right. Okay. Okay. Well, good luck to you. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Mott. We'll obviously give you a little bit extra time. Go ahead, sir.
So let's remember why 1610 is even an option. The developer originally wanted to develop that site, but couldn't. He tried to sell that site, but he couldn't. He tried to sell the lot to the town, but he couldn't. So now that brings us to where we are today, a charitable tax write-off for the developer who made a bad purchase. Can't necessarily say that that is heartfelt altruism. You all know that a COA at 1610 has already been voted down multiple times, yet town leadership has no plan B, no fallback position. Take a moment and ask yourself why they've been unwilling to reach for a different canteen. They will tell you that the community center was vetted, when the reality was that the criticisms leveled were superficial and easy to overcome. I read that Phase 1 site selection report. At the last forum, I urged people to take a look at it as well. What eliminated that site from consideration was a lack of objectivity from the individuals at many levels, putting personal interests ahead of what's best for the community as a whole. And that's a tough thing to do, I recognize that, but it's crucial when you're in a small town. Despite the recent proclamation by one 1610 proponent that Chatham is really a town of 30,000 people, all census figures will prove otherwise. We are a small town of 6,500, and we need to spend our funds wisely. We should be looking for every opportunity to follow the let's kill two birds with one stone philosophy and to try to accomplish two things with one action. Our community center is already 15 years old and will before long need serious renovation. What little technology there is in that building is well behind the time. Not once in all the discussions has the inevitable expenditure of that been contemplated. Proponents have written and said that we need to have a COA building to be proud of. I'm embarrassed by the condition of the existing CNA. I truly am. But I'm even more embarrassed by what I see when I walk into the community center. What young families might see if they were to move here. I'd swear I was walking into a 1990s YMCA. We have heard on multiple occasions from a person running a COA art program having to move furniture to organize her allotted space, particularly referencing sofas with the stuffing falling out. Yet no one asks the obvious question, why is that acceptable? Why is it acceptable to have furniture in such poor condition in the first place? There seems to be a bigger problem at play here. You've been told about a projection of the tax effect of 1610, yet in the recent community forum, we found out that those calculations were made with the assumption that property valuations and tax rates will remain the same for the next 20 years. Given the projected fiscal needs of our town, it's entirely unrealistic and optically misleading.
Getting close, Mr. Mott.
There's been much talk about affordable housing, which I've previously acknowledged is an important issue, yet no one can or will quantify how much that's going to cost taxpayers. They say that people stuck in the desert and suffering of thirst will, in desperation, drink the sand. In reality, they don't drink the sand because they're thirsty. They drink the sand because they reach a point where they don't know the difference. I implore those of you who are just now making the decision on how to vote not to drink the sand. Stand up and summon the courage to vote no, and let's journey on a different direction to find the quenching water we seek. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mott. Mr. Bergstrom. Mr. Semple, if there's anyone in there, please ask them to come in here. It'll be easier. And the same, Mr. Metters, if there's anyone in there with a burning desire to speak, we'd appreciate their coming in. Mr. Bergstrom.
Yes, well, of course, when I walked into the room, I promised that I wouldn't say anything else, but as you probably know, I'm compelled to, but especially when I heard some of the comments from the previous speakers.
You might want to move that microphone up,
okay.
please.
I should be like a pop singer, you know, they hold it right up to the thing. The idea that citizens, a group of citizens who support a project, who have a dream, would organize together, contact their fellow citizens, you know, lobby for that, put ads in the paper, call you up, talk to everyone. That's not a bad thing. That's called democracy. In my experience, the community center, the Marconi property, and so many other projects that came forward in this town and were supported by town meeting didn't originate from the town officials, as nice as good as they are. They were actually put together by people who had an idea, saw a need, and asked people to meet that need. The other thing that was brought up by people who are opposed to this is to throw in the housing issue and saying, well, you know, we're spending $10 million on a senior center, maybe we should spend it on housing. My experience in many venues is right now, money is not the obstacle that we're faced with housing. What we're faced with is the availability of property. That's why we don't have the housing, because we don't have a place to put it. If we have a place to put it, there are multiple funding sources that we can tap into, not just from the town, but from the county and also from the state. So don't be put aside by saying, oh, well, we can't do this, we have to do something else. We can do both. But my main point is, and we've heard this now for several meetings, is the conspiracy theory. You know, the conspiracy theory, the town officials are acting out of self-interest. They're hiding things from you. You have secret meetings, you know. I mean, are there people here who still swallow that stuff? I mean, I know all these people. Believe me, this is as transparent a group of people and as transparent a town government as there is anywhere in Massachusetts or probably anywhere in the world. And one other point before I get too far into it, which I was mentioned by Selectman Mike Schell, is, you know, we all have ideas saying, you know, I think it's too big, I think it's too small, I think there's too much traffic. When you're spending $10 million and you're a town official, a council on aging, you don't go with what you think. What you do, the responsible thing, is you go out to people who actually know what they're talking about, professionals who do it for a living. And they tell you, yes, this site is adequate. Yes, the architecture will facilitate the activities there. No, the traffic isn't going to be a prohibitive issue. So you have to, I mean, I know over a cup of coffee or a beer or something, we can bounce it around and say, yeah, I think it should go here, I think it's too big, but come on, let's put our egos aside and understand that this has been gone through, it's been studied, they reached out, they went to professionals, and this is what you're going to get if you vote for it, and it's going to work. Now, if you don't care if it works, that's another thing. I can't help you. And the another final thing is about taxes. There's been some comment in the paper saying, well, we don't know, big tax increases are coming, you know, property values are going up. The town is legally constrained from raising your taxes beyond a certain point. Every dime that we spend is approved by this meeting here, either in the budget or with a capital, capital improvement.
Getting very close, Mr. Bergstrom.
So don't think that there's some big, that we can't do this because there's some unexpected big tax coming down. The selectmen have told you exactly what this is going to cost. You can do the calculation of what it's going to cost on your tax bill. It isn't a big amount of money. I'm going to support this. And so to the people in the room, my advice is just say yes again.
Thank you. I'll get to you, and you're next, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Crystal Macara. Many of you may know me from my 20-plus years of working retail downtown. Tonight, I'm going to share something personal and painful with you, not to get a rise out of you, but to show you the opportunity we have before us. Several years ago, I was in a very dark place. I had had a falling out with my family of origin, and my work was done for the winter, so my social interactions were very limited. I was depressed, lonely, and isolated, and I spent most of my time sleeping, binging TV, and consuming empty calories. Realizing something had to give, I looked around for a class or group to join so that I could get out of the house and meet new people. I was too young to be an active member of the CAOA, but luckily, I stumbled upon the Creative Arts Center. That discovery is the reason why I'm here tonight. I don't mean the reason why I'm here at this meeting. I mean the reason why I'm here on this earth. That's how much of a difference having a place to connect with others can mean. I know from talking to the staff of the Council on Aging that their services have helped to save lives in the way the Creative Arts Centers saved mine. However, the COA needs our help. They are extremely limited in what they can offer for programming and services and how many patrons they can serve. Do you know, for example, that approximately a third of their tiny building has been deemed unusable for programming by the Board of Health? Also, parts of their building flood. And because their space is so limited, it can take staff 2 hours to set up and break down a room when certain programming is being done in that room. Given the limitations of the Center for Active Living building, the COA has had to offer some of its programs at alternative locations. That, of course, poses a host of problems, such as scheduling conflicts and demands for space. Plus, doing so, even when feasible, draws seniors away from the Center for Active Living. Tight caps on how many patrons can partake in many COA programs and how long wait lists are mean that the Center for Active Living is not seen as a dynamic hub of activity, services, and social interactions by most. In fact, I would argue that it is nothing more than an afterthought for some people. If all COA services and programs, including the expanded options to come, could be held at one dedicated building, seniors could look to the center with pride and a sense of connection, just as I do to the Creative Arts Center. Moreover, seniors are not the only ones who will benefit. With a new building, the COA will have a better, more therapeutic space for
getting close to your
the
time.
Alzheimer's Family Support Group to meet. In addition, they will finally be able to offer adult daycare, which will give many families a safe local place to drop off their loved ones who they are probably in constant care of. That will be a huge relief for many spouses and families. Although you may never see yourself utilizing any of the services offered at the Center for Active Living, I encourage you to put yourself in others' shoes. The Center for Active Living has enhanced the lives of many seniors and their families and will do so on a much greater scale once we vote for a new building. So let's seize this opportunity to show the world that Chatham cares about one another. Say yes to expanding services for seniors and families, and then yes to tackling housing insecurity. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Edith Dockery. I am
Gonna move.
83 years old. My name is Edith Dockery. I'm 83 years old. My husband is 84 years old. We built our home in Chatham in 2000, a 5-room ranch in South Chatham. I know what I paid for it then, and I know what I can get for it now. My husband and I, thank God, am in good physical health. However, my husband goes to respite care in Orleans 2 days a week. There's a wait list for that. He goes 6 hours a day, which, including transportation, gives me 12 hours a week to myself. I'm his primary and only caregiver. Every day when he comes home, I say to him, "So how was today? Anything special? Did you remember anything?" He always pauses to think and then says, "Don't remember, but we laughed a lot. What else could I ask?" That's what he gets. My husband has always been very easygoing, easy to love, and easy to take care of. But I have recently been cautioned by his doctors that this illness can often cause extreme personality changes. It hasn't happened yet, but it has happened to other people. If plans for the new center goes back to more studies, it could take another 5, 10, or 20 years to get to this point. At this point, we have the land, the funds, and the seniors. Those of you who are just starting retirement in Chatham are up for some really terrific times. You actually will have a lot of time to rediscuss this maybe later, if it bothers you after the fact. But right now, those of us who are my age are going to be dead by then. Please vote yes for the new center. It's needed now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Doddridge. Woman in the rear. And if you're in the bleachers and you anticipate speaking, it would be helpful if you'd come down in advance. And for that matter, while she makes her way, Mr. Fulcher, did you receive recognition? When you get down here, ma'am, we'll get to you, and then Ms. Gibbs.
Thank you, Jared Fulcher. I would like to back up Mr.
A little louder or higher.
I would like to back up Mr. Mott's statement about how this property did not come to us on a silver platter. We keep...
Can't hear.
This property did not come to us on a silver platter. Initially, this property was, the current owner bought it for $437,500. It was assessed in the $200,000 range, and it was offered to us, the voters, for $900,000. And then it was offered to us for $750,000. That is not a gift. Secondly, I would like to ask if the Board of Selectmen are going to honor a no vote tonight and stop bringing us back here to debate this.
Yes, ma'am.
My name's Nancy Fields, South Chatham. I'm also on the COA board, but I'm speaking tonight as an individual taxpayer and voter. First of all, I'd like to say thank you so much to the Finance Committee. I read your report, and I found it to be extremely well done. It's thorough, professional, and enlightening. Let me just recap three things from this report that I'd like you to keep in mind when you hopefully vote yes tonight. First of all, projected annual operating costs, which has been a big bone of contention for a while, were estimated at $90,450, which would add less than 1 penny to the tax rate. In addition, they identified several costs, ongoing operating costs, that would go down with the new building as opposed to the building that we're in today. Second, Chatham has plenty of borrowing capacity. Not that we'd want to be borrowed up to the hilt, but this approximately $11 million would still keep us well below our borrowing cap. Number 3, if a new building is not approved, there will be at least $500,000 needed for critical work. This is not painting the lobby and buying new furniture. This is HVAC, foundation work, and an elevator we can't even get parts for anymore. Next, since the annual town meeting in May, there have been multiple opportunities for everyone to weigh in with their opinion on a new Center for Active Living facility at 1610 Main Street. To remind you, that meeting's 2 votes on this issue. In May, 2/3 of Chatham's voters, less 1 voter, voted yes for the building, and 1/3 of Chatham voters, plus 1 voter, voted no. Finally, at the select board meeting where this special town meeting was authorized, Mr. Nicastro said that he believed that all voters who wanted to had had an opportunity to express their opinion, making it possible for this special town meeting's business to be completed in 15 minutes. Well, since we didn't even start until 30 minutes after the start time, we know that didn't come to fruition. However, in my opinion, and especially with the multiple forums provided since that select board meeting, I believe Mr. Nicastro was right, and there's no need for further discussion on this topic. Therefore, Mr. Moderator, I move the question.
Well, actually, you can't do that because the rules that you adopted say that an intervening speaker has to be, I get the sense you're ready to vote. This gentleman has come in from the small gym, I can tell by his yellow card. I'll recognize him, then the lady standing in there, and then if somebody wants to move the previous question, I'll do it. Sir. A little closer to the mic.
My name is Richard Mack. I'm on Library Lane, and the whole purpose of me talking here
Got to come closer, Mr. Mack.
is to raise the question. That was all.
Mr. Mack has walked all this way to move the previous question, which is he's entitled to do. I'm sorry. This is a motion to cut off debate. It itself now, there is no reserved speaking. There are some people who gave me a list of names, and they've gotten 3 of their 4 speakers to speak. If that were baseball, I'd be beyond the World Series at batting .750. It isn't baseball, but we're doing the best we can in the Democratic Forum. Mr. Mack has moved the previous question. We've debated this for 45 minutes. If you'd like to continue to debate, I will stay until tomorrow. But we will now vote on the previous question, which is a motion to cut off debate. Any unclarity as to what we're going to be voting on? Everyone understands? All right. All those in favor of cutting off debate say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. In my opinion, well over 2/3 in this room. Mr. Semple, any doubt in there?
Clearly well over 2/3 here as well.
Thank you. And Mr. Metters, similar sentiment in there?
Similar sentiment, yes.
All right, thank you. We are now going, the gentleman with the yellow card, and for that matter, if there are any other voters with yellow cards in the auditorium or the gym, in order to be counted, you have to go into the small gym. All voters with clickers, however, can't be in the small gym. They have to be in the auditorium or in the room where I am. Is there anyone who needs to move before we start voting? We will now proceed to vote on the main motion as offered by Mr. Schell.
Mr. Moderator, this is the Slim Jim. We have individuals walking into the main auditorium.
To vote. Thank you.
To vote.
To vote. That's fine. We'll wait. They will have an opportunity to get here. But again, if there are any voters in the Slim Jim with clickers, you have to come in here. It doesn't transmit that far. Similarly, voters with yellow cards, and I had seen some, but maybe I've scared them away, need to go in the Slim Jim. So, is there anyone who needs clarification on that about which we are going to vote? If not, we will now vote on the main motion as offered by Mr. Shell. Voters in the auditorium and the gym may now proceed to vote by electronic device. Those in the small gym, please, if you're in favor, please raise your card until Mr. Metters or his associates have counted you. Mr. Metters, if you would please let me know when you've counted all the affirmative votes, then I will ask for the negative votes in there. If anyone does not get the signal or the words, okay, there are two people right here, there's somebody coming down behind you to assist. If there are people who are having trouble, it would actually probably be most useful if you would stand, because there are a lot of people understandably waving and it's kind of warm. So if there's anyone right in the middle, Mr. Dubas needs help. Wanted to say that for years, Eugene. All the affirmative votes in there counted yet, Mr. Metters? If not, I can wait for you.
We are tallying them up.
Thank you. You let me know when you're ready for the nose. I'm sorry.
All right, we're ready for the nose.
Thank you. Now the noes in the Slim Jim, raise your card. And would you please, Mr. Metters, add one no for a member of the Finance Committee who came in late and has a yellow card, but I insisted that she stay here. So please add one no to your count in there. Any voters in the main gym or auditorium who have difficulty getting an okay or have not yet voted, please let me know. Everyone in there okay, Mr. Semple?
Everyone is okay.
Thank you.
Wait.
We're not closing the vote yet.
There's one.
You let me know, Mr. Metters, when you're ready, and then if you would please bring in your numbers or have as you prefer, either bring them in, have a teller bring them in, or give them to me over the microphone system.
All right, we'll be in shortly.
That's fine. And then when you get here, we will close the vote and display it. Ms. Halala, Mr. Costello, and anybody who wants to look over their shoulders can help with the math to determine whether it is a 2/3 vote. The system up here, I believe, has been programmed to reflect whether it is or is not a 2/3 vote. But again, there are voters in the small gym who are their votes are not being counted electronically. Just so that I know, is there anyone who is unclear on what's happened? Someone mentioned to me that there's some perplexed looks on the part of the voters. Now, I'm used to perplexed looks, given my profession. But if there's something specific that is unknown to you, please let me know. Thank you. So, Mr. Metters, when you're ready, you could come in and approach Ms. Smith, who will be with, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to second guess you.
Bill, Amy's bringing them in as we speak.
Oh, as a matter of fact, Ms. Smith is our town clerk, is much brighter than I. She is going to take Mr. Metters' numbers. The people from Meridia are going to insert them manually into the system. So, no, we're not. Never mind. She's still brighter than I am, but we're not doing that. Yeah. As we wait for this process to finalize, please, when you leave, well, a couple of things. You heard Mr. Shell and other voters and other speakers admonishing you not to leave. I suspect, given the heat and the hour, some of you may want to leave. If you do leave before we conclude the meeting, please be sure to deposit your clicker in the bin. They cost money. The technological issues become challenging if we have to disconnect them from the system. We don't keep track of who got what clicker, but each clicker has a number. So I'm ready to close the vote. You have the voters from in there? We are now going to close the vote and display the electronic sum. There is going to be, as I understand it, some additional votes to be added from they're being brought in and they're being added. I'm sorry, is he displaying all of the votes or not? He is. He told me he wasn't. Well, please confirm that. I don't think the voters want any uncertainty. That's what we... Okay, well, why don't we put up what you have electronically, and the town clerk and Ms. Hillel and Mr. Costello get together and tell me what the final vote is. Okay. That is not a final vote. It is not right now a 2/3 vote. We need to add in the votes from the other room. This is not hard to do, folks. Can we deliver them down here? What was the vote in the other room, please? The vote in the other room was 59 yes, 37 no. In my opinion, that is 690 to 491. Is that correct? 59 yes, 37 no. Ms. Hillel nods affirmatively. In my opinion, that is not a 2/3 vote, and the article is lost. Will there be a motion under Article 6? If you leave, please make sure you leave your clicker. I apologize for getting cranky, but it's hot and you've been patient. There will be no motion made under Article 6. I'm presuming there will be no motion made under Article 7 or under Article 8. That being the case, I would entertain a motion from Mr. Shell that the meeting stand adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.
Ms. Goldsmith has moved that we adjourn. All those in favor of adjourning say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. So voted. Thank you all very much.